Why, hello there. It's your boy, Fredo, for real. And to celebrate the release of Kung Fu Panda 4, we're drawing Po, but he's realistic. So, to start off, I drew a placeholder for the logo. I didn't draw the letters in case I wanted to reposition it. Next, I drew a silhouette of Po. This actually took a few tries, but I left those out for the sake of making this video less lengthy. The silhouette turned out fine, except for the legs. Especially this one. As you'll see later in the video, I spent a lot of time repositioning them. But before that, I drew Po's head. As of now, I actually have seen the fourth one, and I gotta be honest, it wasn't that good. Well, let me rephrase that. I did like the movie. It has great fight choreography, great comedy, great animation, and likable characters. However, Kung Fu Panda 4 is just lacking the emotion that was present in the previous films and in Furious 5. Like seriously, what the heck, DreamWorks? They were only in the credits. Overall, Kung Fu Panda 4 is a decent film, but it is the weakest of the franchise. Oh, by the way, they're planning on making 2 more of these movies, so do what you will with that information. After drawing the arms, I drew Po's foot, which turned out great. Unfortunately, my bubble was burst when I moved on to the legs. Alright, we're getting somewhere. Woo! Man, I'm so glad I got that done. Now, I can finally move on to the rest of the body. So with all that out of the way, it was time for me to add his iconic shorts. After drawing the shorts, I redrew his foot. Then I drew his other foot. After that, I opened his mouth to make him look a little more excited. I don't know if that worked though, so please let me know in the comments. I like to hear your feedback. Then it was time to draw his hand. Now, there isn't that much for me to say here, so I guess I'll just talk about Kung Fu Panda some more. I was 4 or 5 years old when the first movie came out, so I don't have any memories about any of the commercials. Oddly enough, I wasn't very into the franchise at first. It just didn't appeal to me. That was until I watched Kung Fu Panda: Legends of Awesomeness. It was a pretty good show that expanded Poe's character and gave some much needed depth to the Furious Five. I highly recommend the show if you can watch it. It's pretty funny. Despite my newfound interest in the Kung Fu Panda franchise, the fourth one is the first one I watched in theaters. I didn't see the third one in theaters. I just waited until that one came out on pay-per-view. Man, I feel kind of old just saying that. I mean, does anyone even use pay-per-view anymore? Also, did anyone else think it was pay-per-view and not pay-per-view? No? Just me? Okay. So as you can see, I'm doing the logo right now, and I'm erasing it because I didn't like how the letters turned out. Fortunately, it wasn't too hard for me to fix them, and I was satisfied with the result. Speaking of the letters, if you switch Kung and Fu, then replace one of the U's with an I, do you know what you get? Feed Kung Panda. It doesn't mean anything, but for some reason, I just felt the need to share that with you guys. Anyways, after that, I went back to Poe's limbs and gave them a fur texture. As I did this, I would also adjust his shorts. I went back and forth between these two tasks. The next step was to polish the letters by making the lines straighter and smoother. This part took me a little while, but the result was definitely worth it. It always feels good when you work hard for something and it turns out great. I guess that's how Poe felt when he became the Dragon Warrior. However, I also know from experience that it sucks when you work hard for something and it doesn't work out. That must have been why Tigress was so mad when she didn't become the Dragon Warrior. But she eventually learned to accept Poe, and as a result, she actually became closer with him compared to the other Furious Five members. Despite the fact that she actually hated him the most at first. It just goes to show that new opportunities arise after failure. Wow, things got way more deep and thought-provoking than I intended. I guess that just shows how good these movies are. They just really get you to think, you know? And speaking of thinking, I think you should give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Or we could just do another sped up section with some music.
Love me, Matthew?
I do.
Honestly?
Yes. Secretly, but honestly.
No more secrets.
Here I am, making a call. Here I am, making a call.
And now it's time for my favorite part, adding the black outlines. Now, this project is pretty special to me for a few reasons, but the biggest one is these. What you're looking at here is a collection of Copic markers. These costed me about $8 each, and there are 11 of them, so if you include the tax, these costed me about $100 total. I know that's pretty expensive for some markers, so let me explain why they cost so much. Well, for starters, these have two tips instead of just one, a chisel tip and a highlighter tip. Now, I don't know the terminology, so if you do know what these tips are actually called, please let me know in the comments. I would appreciate it a lot. The second reason why Copic markers are so expensive is that there are all sorts of colors. As you know, if you were to get a box of, say, Crayola markers, it would come with 12, maybe 24 of them. And those boxes do have a decent variety of colors, but they only have the basic base colors like red, blue, yellow, orange, and so on. These markers, on the other end, have a bunch of colors. For example, you don't just have gray and red, you have cool gray, neutral gray, crimson red, lipstick red, bright red. Okay, well, I made some of those up, but you get the idea. The point is that Copics have such a wide array of colors, which allows for more accuracy when depicting certain things, and it allows for better shading and blending. And speaking of blending, that brings me to my third point, which is that these markers are very easy to blend together. This is what allows for the more efficient shading that I mentioned earlier. Not only could you get a smoother gradient with similar shades of a certain color, you could also mix colors together. If you need orange, you can just color red on top of yellow and boom, now you have orange. And the fourth reason why Copics are so expensive is that they are reusable. With most markers, you just use them once and then you throw them away. But with Copics, you can get an ink cartridge and refill them so you never have to throw the marker away. Now, Copics aren't the only markers that function like this. There are similar brands, but I heard that Copic is one of the best, so I got these. The other reason I'm excited to use these is a bit more sentimental. You see, when I was a sophomore in high school, I took a drawing class and my teacher had a glass or plastic case full of Copic markers. There were about 30, maybe even 40 of them. However, these markers could only be used by her and the AP Studio Art students. That was because some students don't take good care of the art supplies, so it wouldn't be a good idea to let those kinds of people handle such valuable markers. AP Studio Art kids are passionate about art, so they would be responsible with them, hence why they could use them. When I became a senior, I enrolled in AP Studio Art, but then the pandemic happened and I couldn't go to school in person. Therefore, I never got to use the Copic markers. After high school, I didn't have much time to do art. That was until now. So here I am about 4 years later and I finally get to use these markers. So as you can see, right now I'm using the markers to fill up the shorts. And right now they're working like a charm. They feel really good to use. The chisel tip just gives me that precision that is hard for me to obtain with the brush. Well, that's because I'm not that good of a painter, but still, these markers are very helpful for me. However, I am struggling to blend them a little, which is a bit unfortunate. I heard they were really good for blending, but I don't know. That was just something I had an issue with. Also, they do bleed through the paper, so be careful what kind of paper you use. However, I am using a special paper for a sketchbook. I'm not just using your typical 8x11 sheets of paper that you would use for school or something. So yeah, if you're considering using these type of markers, definitely consider what type of paper you're using. Just get something that's really thick and you should be fine. So right now, I'm just coloring over the shorts with some gray so that they are a bit darker. For this part, the blending actually worked pretty well. Now I'm going to go over this with some yellow since Poe's shorts are actually more yellow than I had realized. Now it's time for me to color the letters, and this part turned out really good because again the chisel tip just gives me that precision, and also I didn't have to blend any colors. Another thing is with these markers, when you color you don't actually see the little stroke lines that you tend to see with other markers such as Crayola. So again, like I said earlier, the letters turned out really good. And now it's time for me to outline the letters. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a black Copic marker. I don't even know if such a marker even exists, honestly, so I'm gonna have to use paint, which kind of sucks because the reason I got the markers is so that I wouldn't have to paint. It's not that I don't like painting, it's just that it's much faster to use markers, but you know what? It's okay because I saved some time coloring the shorts, and that's good enough for me. Now, typically I avoid using color pencils because of the streaks you get from coloring. However, the parts that I colored are so small that you don't even notice. So I decided, what the heck, and just went with it. Because if I used a paintbrush, it would have just been a big mess that I would have to refine later. Once I painted it, I realized that you can't even see the black outlines because I used black paint. So I decided to repaint it with a lighter color. Whew, that's better. Now it's time for me to thicken the outlines. I messed up the arm a little bit, so I covered it up with some white paint. While I waited for the paint to dry, I refined the rest of the black outlines. Unfortunately, I messed up the paw prints when I painted the first, so I have to repaint them now. After that, I refined more of the black outlines. Now let's pause for a bit. So, I realized that one of the letters needed to be tweaked, but I can't color over the paint with the Copic markers, so I decided to repaint it. The thing is, it was basically impossible for me to get the right shade of yellow, so I had to repaint the entire logo, all because of one stupid letter. This is the kind of stuff I go through for you guys. Alrighty, we're finally done. Man, this looks really good, and sorry about that little rant earlier. I just really wanted to get this done, but I just want to let you know that I really do enjoy doing these art projects a lot, and I really do want to keep doing more in the future, and I hope that you guys like to watch them because I really do have a lot of fun doing them. So with that said, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!